8 mutants feared by the healing factor. The diversity of mutant powers is something that stands out the most in comics. Each mutant possesses a particularity, a power to call their own. Even if mutants have repeated powers, they act differently in the individual's body or on other people depending on the power. For example, Rogue and Hope Summers both can copy powers, but Rogue needs to touch the opponent for that while Hope just needs to see them. There are incredible powers like shooting energy beams through the eyes or completely transforming into a diamond, but there are characters whose powers make them immortal. Yes, nerds, there are characters who have such an advanced healing factor that it's almost impossible to kill them. And these are the characters we'll see on today's list. So sit tight as we get to know the 8 mutants with the greatest healing factor in Marvel. Let's go! Number 1. Wolverine. Talking about mutants and healing factor without putting Wolverine first is almost a crime. He's one of the oldest characters in the publisher and is extremely marked because of this power. It's no wonder that his rivals and even his allies also have this power. After all, they're all directly related, and many are on this list. Wolverine's healing factor is one of his several secondary mutations, but along with his claws, it's the most striking power. His comics are filled with scenes where his skin is exposed, he gets shot with arrows and bullets, he's torn in half, and much more. His healing factor allows him to come back from the dead even if only his bones are left. Even so, he's not immune to pain and has even asked Jean Grey to manipulate his mind when the injury was extremely painful. The adamantium metal implanted in his body turbocharges his regeneration and prevents his bones from being destroyed, allowing him to always come back to life. But it's a double-edged sword. We found out over time that the adamantium in his body was blocking the evolution of his mutation. So, Logan would be even more powerful without the presence of the metal coating he possesses. Number 2. Sabretooth. As I said before, many of Wolverine's villains possesses a heightened healing factor, and this is the case with Sabretooth. Unlike what was shown in the first Wolverine movie, there are not brothers, just mutants on opposite sides with similar mutation. He has almost the same set of powers as Wolverine, but instead of growing claws between his fingers, he grows his nails into claw-like shapes. Their fights are always marked by a lot of blood and tearing, as both of them regenerate. Many characters have tried to put an end to the villain, but his healing factor always prevents him from dying. Until in the current phase of Mutants, he was imprisoned within the island of Krakoa and put into suspended animation. Number 3. X-23. X-23 became quite famous in recent years thanks to her live-action adaptation in the movie Logan. She is a mutant artificially created through genetic manipulation of Logan. In short, she is a clone of Wolverine. Being the 23rd experiment and the only successful one, she adopted the name X-23. Her powers are practically the same as her predecessor, with a difference in her claws. Wolverine has 3 claws coming out of his hands while she has 2 and 1 on her foot. As for her healing factor, she possesses the same capabilities as Wolverine. And if he is one of the hardest characters to kill, consequently, she is too. Number 4. Daken. Daken is the son of Wolverine and his Japanese wife, Itsu. She was killed while pregnant by the Winter Soldier when he was still a villain, and Wolverine thought they were both dead. But the baby survived thanks to the healing factor inherited from his father. Daken was adopted by another Japanese family but believed that his mother's death and the tragedies of his childhood were Wolverine's fault and sought revenge. Eventually, they reconciled, and today they coexist peacefully in Krakoa, but at the cost of much bloodshed on both sides. He possesses the same powers as his father's and consequently X-23. However, he also has a difference in his claws, where 2 come out between his fingers, 1 from his wrist. Similarly to his half-sister, his mental state affects his super regeneration. Under normal conditions, he can regenerate entire amputated limbs like arms and legs without much concern. Sure, but one thing that doesn't require much concentration to do? Liking this video and subscribing to keep up with the content. That way you'll learn all about mutants, the Marvel and DC universes, and everything that comics have to offer. Number 5. Marrow. Spike. Medalla isn't as popular a mutant in comics, but she inspired the creation of a well-known character in animations, the Spike. Both possess basically the same set of powers, bone generation, and manipulation. She can expand her bones and use them as armor. coat her arms, and enhance her strikes or break them to use as a weapon. However, all of this comes at the price of extreme pain. It can be very pleasant to feel your bones expanding and piercing your skin, especially since initially she didn't even have control over it. She possesses a healing factor that allows her to heal from all the wounds she inflicts on her body by using these powers. It also allows the regeneration of her bones when they need to be replaced. It's not as great a healing factor as those mentioned earlier, but it's worth mentioning. Number 6. Wild Child. Kyle is a boy who possesses a wild personality that often gets him into trouble. His mutation causes him to gradually regress to a wild state, which led him to work for the government while they provided him with the serum that cured this savagery. From time to time, he loses control, and mutants like Wolverine are called to contain him. It's a bit difficult to determine what his mutation actually is. After all, he has been modified several times by the government. The powers that are usually present are his heightened senses, animalistic physiological, and his super regeneration. But it's not certain what the extent of this healing factor is since he fully healed from torture. But when his vocal cords were cut, he lost his voice. So, there's doubt about what his actual full power is. Number 7. Elixir. Elixir is the first and only Omega level mutant to enter this list. His powers aren't as offensive as others of the same classification because he possesses biological manipulation. He can manipulate all bodily functions at a genetic level. This allows him not only to heal himself but also to heal other characters differently from the others with a healing factor that I've mentioned. He can heal entire limbs of other people like arms, legs, and even vital organs. His powers are limited to his knowledge of biology, and by being mentally linked to the mutant beast, one of Marvel's greatest geneticists, he discovered the extent of his powers. His lack of control was so great that when he desired to have more offensive power, he developed the Death Touch where he literally touches someone and that someone dies. Number 8. Courier. Jacob isn't a mutant with much premise in the comics and is rarely seen. His powers are endopathy. He can communicate with and give orders to his own body, giving him complete control over his own genetics. It's basically Elixir's power on a smaller scale. With this, he is capable of things like transforming into a woman, hiding his X gene and healing factor. His healing is strong enough to survive bullets to the head and limbs being torn off, but apparently, he doesn't do so quickly. His tissues take a long time to regenerate, and he needs to take from other parts of his body, which caused him to lose 20 centimeters in height in the process of mass reorganization. And this way we know who the main mutants with the healing factor in Marvel are. Leave in the comments who your favorite is or if someone was missing from the list. Don't forget to like, share, and leave suggestions for more videos so we can grow together with the best nerd channel on YouTube.